Welcome to Tale Spinners, where we bring stories to life. In this video, we present to you in the shadow of tragedy, love finds a way. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel and join us on this adventure that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Without further ado, let's begin. Alice and Jack met at a coffee shop in downtown Manhattan. Alice was a struggling artist, working as a barista to make ends meet. Jack was a successful lawyer, working at a prestigious law firm. They hit it off immediately and began dating. Their love was passionate and intense, and they spent every moment they could together. They explored the city, taking long walks through Central Park and visiting museums and galleries. Alice would often take Jack to her favorite spots, such as hidden rooftop gardens and graffiti-covered alleys. Jack loved seeing the city through Alice's eyes, and Alice loved having someone who appreciated her art. One day, Jack surprised Alice by taking her to a fancy restaurant overlooking the Hudson River. He got down on one knee and proposed to her. Alice was overjoyed and said yes, tears streaming down her face. They spent the next few months planning their wedding. Alice was thrilled to finally have someone to share her life with, and Jack was excited to start a family. They picked out a beautiful venue in upstate New York, and Alice spent every moment she could painting and creating decorations. But just a few weeks before the wedding, Alice received a call from a stranger. The caller told her that Jack had been having an affair with his assistant. Alice was devastated and couldn't believe it. She confronted Jack, but he denied everything, saying that the caller was just trying to break them up. Alice didn't know who to believe. She loved Jack more than anything, but the thought of him cheating on her made her sick to her stomach. She decided to investigate on her own and started following Jack around. She followed him to his office, where she saw him flirting with his assistant. She followed him to a hotel, where she saw him go into a room with another woman. Alice was heartbroken. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't imagine life without Jack, but she couldn't ignore what she had seen. She decided to confront him again, but this time, she had proof. She showed him pictures of him with the other woman, and Jack finally admitted to cheating on her. Alice was devastated. She felt like her whole world had crumbled. She broke up with Jack, but he wouldn't leave her alone. He kept calling and texting her, begging for her forgiveness. He even showed up at her apartment, but she wouldn't let him in. One night, Alice was walking home from a friend's house when she saw Jack waiting for her. He begged her to come back to him, but Alice refused. She told him that she never wanted to see him again and walked away. But as she turned the corner, she heard a gunshot. She turned back around and saw Jack lying on the ground, blood pooling around him. She ran to him and held him, screaming for someone to help. Jack was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He died on the operating table. Alice was devastated. She couldn't believe that the man she loved was gone forever. As she mourned, Alice began to receive strange messages. They were from an unknown number, and they would often reference things that only she and Jack knew about. She began to suspect that someone was following her, and she became increasingly paranoid. One day, she received a message that made her blood run cold. It was a picture of her, taken from behind, as she walked through Central Park. She recognized the jacket she was wearing and realized that the picture must have been taken that day, while she was on her way to Jack's apartment. Alice didn't know what to do. She was scared and alone, and she didn't know who to turn to. She thought about going to the police, but she didn't have any concrete evidence, and she was afraid they wouldn't believe her. Alice's paranoia consumed her. She stopped going outside, stopped painting, and stopped answering the phone. She spent all her time in her apartment, with the curtains drawn, jumping at every sound. One day, she received a package in the mail. It was a painting she had done years ago, a portrait of Jack. She didn't know who had sent it, but she knew it wasn't Jack. It was like someone was taunting her, reminding her of the man she had loved and lost. That same day, she received another message. It was a video this time, of her walking through the park. The camera was shaky, and she could hear someone breathing heavily in the background. She realized with horror that someone had been following her. Alice couldn't take it anymore. She knew she had to leave the city, leave the memories and the danger behind. She packed her bags and caught the first bus out of town, leaving behind everything she had ever known. She arrived in a small town in upstate New York and rented a small cabin in the woods. She thought that being alone in nature would bring her some peace, but she was wrong. The nightmares started soon after she arrived. She dreamed of Jack, of his smile and his touch, but they were always followed by the sound of the gunshot and the sight of his lifeless body. Alice was consumed by grief and guilt. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had caused Jack's death, that if she had just forgiven him, he would still be alive. She couldn't paint, couldn't create, couldn't find any joy in life. She felt like she was just existing, waiting for her own death. One day, she received a letter in the mail. It was from Jack's assistant, the woman he had cheated on her with. She explained that she had been seeing a therapist and had come to realize that what she had done was wrong. She said that she wanted to make amends, that she wanted to tell Alice the truth. Alice was skeptical but decided to meet with her. They met at a cafe in town, and the woman told Alice everything. She said that Jack had been embezzling money from his firm and that he had been involved in some shady business dealings. He had been working with a dangerous group of people, and they had found out about his affairs. The woman explained that they had threatened to hurt her and Jack if they didn't keep quiet. Jack had told her that he was going to leave town and start a new life with Alice, but the people he had been working with had found out about his plans. Alice was shocked. She couldn't believe that Jack had been involved in such dangerous activities. She didn't know how to process the information, how to reconcile it with the man she had loved. But the woman had one more piece of information. She had found a letter that Jack had written to Alice, a letter he had never had the chance to give her. She handed it to Alice, and she opened it, tears streaming down her face. The letter was filled with apologies and declarations of love. Jack had written that he was sorry for everything, that he had been a fool to cheat on her, and that he would do anything to make it right. He wrote that he loved her more than anything in the world, that he had always loved her, and that he would love her forever. Alice realized, in that moment, that she had never stopped loving Jack. She felt like a part of her had died with him, like she had been living in a haze ever since he died. But she also knew that she couldn't go back to the way things were before. She couldn't pretend that everything was okay, that they could just pick up where they left off. The woman offered to help Alice, to protect her from the people who had killed Jack. She said that she knew people who could help keep Alice safe, and that they could work together to bring justice to the people who had taken Jack's life. Alice agreed, feeling like she had no other choice. She couldn't go back to her old life, but she also couldn't live in fear forever. She wanted to honor Jack's memory, to find a way to make things right. They began working together, gathering information and building a case against the people who had killed Jack. It was a dangerous game, and Alice knew that her life was on the line. But she also knew that she had to see it through, that she couldn't let Jack's death be in vain. As they worked together, Alice found herself falling for the woman who had once been Jack's mistress. She was kind and patient, understanding and supportive. She listened to Alice's fears and hopes, and helped her find the strength to keep going. They spent long hours together, poring over documents and making plans. They talked about Jack, about the man they had both loved, and about the life they could have had if things had gone differently. One night, they were sitting in front of the fire in the cabin, talking about their hopes and dreams. Alice looked at the woman, really looked at her, and realized that she was in love with her. She didn't know how it had happened, but she knew that it was real. The woman must have sensed something, because she looked at Alice with a strange expression. Alice hesitated, unsure of what to say or do, but the woman leaned in and kissed her. It was like a spark had been ignited, like something had been awakened inside of Alice. She felt a rush of desire, of longing, of need. She knew that she wanted this woman, that she wanted to be with her, to love her. They spent the night together, exploring each other's bodies and souls. It was like they were both trying to find something, to fill a void that had been left by Jack's death. They held each other close, crying and laughing and making love. In the morning, they were woken up by the sound of someone breaking into the cabin. They knew that the people they had been investigating had found them, and that they were in grave danger. They grabbed their bags and ran out the back door, into the woods. They could hear the sound of footsteps behind them, and they knew that they were being chased. They ran as fast as they could, dodging trees and jumping over logs. Finally, they made it to a clearing, where they saw a helicopter waiting for them. The woman had arranged for them to be picked up in case of an emergency, and they had just made it in time. They climbed aboard the helicopter, holding each other tightly. As they lifted off, Alice looked down at the woods, at the place where she had found a kind of solace, a kind of love. She knew that she would never be the same again, that she would always carry the weight of Jack's death with her. But she also knew that she had found a new kind of love, a new kind of hope. As they flew away, Alice closed her eyes and whispered, "I love you." The woman held her close and whispered back, "I love you too."